narrow gauge, built on double O gauge track. Everything on here is scratch built. Cardboard models, cardboard wagons, Plucky car. This loco is Plucky car on a Hornby Barclays. He's come up to the fuel depot to be dieseled up. Over here we've got the engine shed in the coaling stage with a steam loco built on a GWR 101. The layout has been built as a working yard for a nearby slate or other kind of company. All the lorries built with card. They're not lorries, they're wagons. All the sheds are built with card. As I said, all buildings are card. This is a yard crane. There is some lights in it, some wiring in it, but they've not been wired as yet. This crane lifts these wagons off and puts them into the workshops, both this side and this side. There's a crane over here. It goes out to do work at the quarry. This loco running now is a Hornby GWR 101, just going across the turntable. The turntable is fictitious, doesn't turn, it's just there for props. Turns wagons into this works repair shop and also turns locomotives round, fictitiously again. Coming past the foundry and various other little sheds. It's just basically a little narrow gauge built on Hornby chassis and built on cardboard when the lockdown was on. Although the buildings are cardboard, they are quite strong. We have got electro frog points, as the vehicles are Hornby 040 chassis. They don't always like to go over the points, so I've done electro frog points. There's 8 of them. They've all got sleep motors that are wired in for polarity change. Although the models don't run very well because they are Hornby old chassis, it was something I did during lockdown. I just bought stuff off of eBay that was cheap and cheerful, so they could perhaps do with more modern running chassis, and the locos bodies could be transferred onto the 040 chassis. We're running on a handheld Gauge Master walkabout. It's the electronic control one. You can operate it one-handed, and you can got directional one right and left, off in the middle. We are underneath. I'm getting a bit wobbly now as we go under, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this because of my back problems, but there is up there a T1, and there's also a capacitor unit for the points, which throws the points. All the point switches are down here, as is the insulation, or isolation rather. So we've got 4 isolation tracks here, which is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Same at that end, we've got 2 isolation tracks, which is one up there where the breakdown crane is, and we've got this one here where the yard crane is. Now this breakdown crane is purely fictitious. It's built on triang chassis, so it doesn't run very well with the wheel flanges on the Pico track. But all that is made of card. The crane turns, so you can do a little scene of him doing some repair work somewhere. We've got the boiler, or the water bowser for the steam crane boiler and the coal supply. We've got his support vehicle, and there's a couple of I built these little wagons here as support vehicles to go with the crane. These are larger vans, one being a brake van. There's figures various places around the layout. Bloke on a stacker truck, some cargo. Everything is included on the layout. Got some open wagons here that I've made. Again, they're on Hornby chassis, so they do run quite nice. Some of them more modern Hornby chassis, but there's some of the earlier ones, i.e. the crane and its support vehicles, they was built on triangle chassis, so it's more of a static display than a running unit. It will run on the straight track, it just doesn't like going over the points. There's a couple of more wagons down here. There's an open wagon, there's a stone wagon. I built a fuel oil wagon, and we've got a coal wagon. The fuel oil wagon obviously only goes out now and again, but again that's on a triangle chassis, so it's not that good at running over the points. It runs on the straight but not over the points. Anyway, this is standing on its own legs. It's 76 or 78, it's 78 inches I think long. The legs fold up under it, so it's easy for storage, easy for transporting. Everything on it is loose fitted, nothing's glued down apart from the scenery. These lights work. This light above the tank works, as does this yard light. The wires are here at the minute, they've not been wired in. There's this cabin for the drivers. They come down here, diesel up, and go up there to fuel up with coal and water. They come down to their cabin here. That's got a light in it, which is not yet wired. But I can show you here, as you see, the wire comes down through the board. And as I say, nothing is fixed to the board. This one here will lift, and that's the numbers for the points. It takes a little while just to get used to which numbers do what. The points up here, I numbered them 1 through 8, and I've sort of cheated a little bit by, you can see a number 5 written here. So do a little bit of cheating because you know that's number 5, but when you're used to it you can paint that out. Anyway, that's the layout. Okay, so this is a Hornby 404 Barclays. It's got a placard cab, placard buffer, no buffers. I've taken the buffers off and put just a straight sole plate down. The cab is made from placard. This is O gauge. That's an O gauge person in there. I bought him off eBay as an O gauge person. I'm just going to hands on and turn the loco around so you can see it from this side. So the front is the same. I took the buffers off. It's a reduced decoupling. The reason it's reduced is because the buffer housing or cover or whatever you want to call it, that orange thing, is taking up some of the space. The handrails and the bits and pieces have all been added. So that's the Barclays. Now the GWR 101, again built with Plucky card, again O gauge driver, because this is built as O gauge layout on double O gauge track, so therefore we are talking O gauge. Now this one, I've tried to put a little bit of detail in the cab, well I have on the other one as well. And then I'm just going to hands on a minute, bring them over here. I put some coal bunkers on the front of the cab, just doing hands on again. Put some coal bunkers on the cab, and we've got the reduced size decoupling because the red beam comes down in front. Put a toolbox on him, and on the back we've put some fire irons and a lamp and a coal bucket, and I've put a lamp on the front just there. So it's quite a nice little model, but it could do with a modern chassis putting under it, because it's an old 101, it's an old Hornby 101. Just something I bought off eBay when lockdown was on and I was just playing around. So it could do with a modern chassis. And you can see it runs alright up against the buffer stop.